Welcome to Discovery Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I'm honored to have two filmmakers with me. We've got Omri Rose and Yan Fisher. Hey, guys.
Hi.
We just did an interview all about their film Achan and Ezra, which is going to be in the Season 5 of the Discovery Indie Film TV series. And if I'm rushing, it's because we're going to have both of these guys answer the 4 questions in this episode. And I think we've got 20 minutes to do it. So we're going to crank through.
Let's do it.
But we'll discuss the films a little. But before we discuss the films, the Discover Indie Film TV series on Amazon Prime Video, Achan and Ezra is going to be in it. It's a brilliant comedy. So watch Season 5 on Amazon Prime Video. Just go to Prime, search for Discover Indie Film, and watch Season 5. I tell you what episode, but I don't know what episode yet. So this is a 4 questions episode, which means
boom,
these two gentlemen are going to answer the 4 questions, which are favorite films of all time, an underrated film, an overrated film, and a lesser-known film that people should seek out. We've got 2 international men of mystery who have lived all around the world, probably seen tons of cinema, so I'm really looking forward to these. So please, you guys decide who goes first. You can both do question 1 and then both do question 2. And
question at a time, yeah.
No, go ahead.
So first question being favorite film, right?
Favorites. You can do up to 3 if you want.
Up to 3. Well, my favorite film of all time is Seven Samurai, Akira Kurosawa. Amazing film. Benchmark film for action movies as well. You know, it kind of invented a lot of these concepts that we come to see later in action movies, such as even filming with multiple cameras on action sequences, or the whole setup of like the recruiting sequence of like people getting recruited one by one to join like the squad, all this great stuff. But it's much more than just an action movie. It's a masterpiece. Akira Kurosawa brings humanity. He brings drama. The soundtrack is morose and the theme is resounding. It's just my favorite movie of all time. It has everything in it, and it's a phenomenal movie, in my opinion.
It is. It's brilliant. It's brilliant, and it's deservedly considered one of the greatest films of all time, and it's been imitated so much.
Yeah.
And none of the imitators even qualify.
They don't come close. They really don't.
Yeah. I wouldn't even mention that Western because everyone mentions the Western, and it's not the same. It's not close.
It's not. They try. They take ideas, and you know what I will commend Magnificent Seven for is they didn't try to just copy it. You know, they tried to. This is a Western, so how is it different, and how is it the setting different? You know, and move from there. So, Jan, you want to?
I mean, it's hard, you know, people always ask, what's your favorite movie? And then, you know, everybody always goes for the usual, like, 5 films, one of them being what you just said.
I don't think people say Seven Samurai very often.
You'd be surprised, especially if you're into movies. I mean, for me, I cannot say I have a favorite movie because, you know, for me, every movie you learn something, and I watch a lot of films and a lot of television lately. I try to watch something every day just because I think it's important for you as a filmmaker. I like, as I've mentioned in podcast before, for me, one of my favorite movies is Once Upon a Time in America, and that's not only because I think it's an amazing movie. For me, it also has a sentimental value. That was one of the first films I've seen when I was actually very young, which usually you're not supposed to see a movie like this. I also saw the long version, not in English originally, and I just loved the film, acting, the way it was made. I didn't know nothing about the director at that time, but really one of the parts, as I said, I was maybe, 10 years old when I saw it or something like that. I had no idea, who director was because, as I said, I was born in Russia and it wasn't, but I remember one of the scenes that really stuck in my head is the part where Jennifer Connelly the kid is watching her through this little hole in the wall or whatever it was, just the way it was made and the camera work there. I don't know why. I mean, of course, you also were, 10-year-old boy, and here you have really beautiful girl scene, but that wasn't even that. It's just something romantic about this whole movie and this piece specifically for me. So this movie is always in my head, and I actually, now developing things to direct for myself. I also always think about this film, and I watched it like a million times. So for me, that was, what I would say that's one of my favorite movies. Another film I have to mention is Requiem for a Dream. Again, I think it was the best movie Aronofsky ever made. I think the bigger budgets he got, the worse he became, just my opinion. I think that directors like him should stick to smaller budgets, because then they make amazing movies. Once, you get into that, I can do whatever I want, and you start kind of like, okay, I don't know what to do with the money. Just my opinion. But I think Requiem for a Dream is a masterpiece from every direction. Also, this whole camera work with him putting the doing this putting the camera on the person, which of course he also did in Pi, which was also interesting film, the first movie he ever made.
I was going to back you up on the budget thing, that I kind of love. Pi's my favorite film by Aronofsky in a lot of ways. Because he was dealing with the limits.
Yeah. So he was one of my favorite directors until lately. I even liked Fountain. I think it was something very special about it. And
by the way, Jennifer Connelly ties your two.
Yes, I know. It does. Interesting. I know. But that's I thought about that, but actually,
not necessarily.
It's funny because I didn't know that was her in Once Upon a Time in America. I had no idea, because it was one of her. She was 16 years old in this, or whatever, 17 years old in this movie. And I later found, I was like, wait, there's a connection there. But then also I watch a lot of foreign films, or foreign for you, but maybe not for me so much. I love a movie that people don't really know. I think it's, and then I might shock people that know me, but I find it to be a really beautiful film, which is completely weird. It's called Cemetery Man. I don't know if you know this film. It's an Italian film with an American-British actor in it. Well, actually, he's British. And it's a horror film, but it's a very weird movie, in my opinion, with a message. But, most of the people, when I tell them watch this movie, unless they think like me, they're like, oh my God. But most of them are like, I don't know what I watched. But that's one of the films that actually influenced me as a filmmaker in a way. I love the way this movie tells the story, and you have a story on the surface, but it has kind of a message underneath that I don't think everybody got. But again, it's an Italian film in English. I've
heard of it, but I don't think I've seen it. So.
And
it sounds like my cup of tea. Honestly, everything you said appeals to me.
It's a very strange movie. It's about a guy, Rupert Everett is actually the lead in it, who works in a cemetery in this Italian town, and people keep dying there, and he basically, in the middle of the night, all the dead people, they just come alive. He has to deal with it. So it's kind of a horror movie, and some are violent, some are very nice, and then he has this sidekick, a guy who works there who is kind of like, I'm not sure what kind of issue he has, but he's kind of a strange guy who doesn't really talk much, and he works there in the cemetery, and he falls in love with this girl that he always watches when she was alive, and then she gets into a motorcycle accident, and now she's during her wedding, so she's this bride outfit, and he's now like, oh my God, she's here at night, so I can develop a relationship with her. It's a very weird movie, but it has a message, and it has a really, really great ending, very sad, but I kind of sometimes feel like that's what's happening to us. That's why I like this movie, but again, it's not for everybody. So that's would be, just some highlights.
Excellent.
Of the films.
You've inspired me. I want to see it. All right, well, question number 2 is an underrated film.
Well, I'm going to broaden this to a guilty pleasure underrated movie. And actually, I was thinking about this. It kind of fits into the same category as Seven Samurai in some ways, because they try to do a similar thing. But I absolutely love the movie 13th Warrior. This is a movie with Antonio Banderas, and he plays this Arabic warrior who gets taken into this Viking quest to save this village in the middle of nowhere, and it's kind of a little bit of Beowulf, a little bit of Seven Samurai, I guess, and it's just a fun action romp that has great performances, and I don't know, I just love this movie. It's got great music, it just strikes a brilliant tone, and it's gritty and dark, but also has funny moments, and it's just a great movie. I love it. It's a great adventure action movie.
Excellent.
I guess Antonio Banderas got lucky to play a warrior in the Middle East, because these days it's impossible. So,
Literally, the movie starts with like, "My name is Ibn Salabin, Ibn Daretis, and I have a." It's just like very funny. He's narrating this thing.
does it embrace the corniness in a way, or
It's not corny. Like
No.
it's like it's just a good adventure kind of action movie that is fun. You know, you enjoy it.
it's a tough one, because I watch so many films. I can imagine if I have to literally sit down. I was thinking about this, when you ask the question. It's really hard to answer that question, because there's a lot of movies that are out there that people unfortunately haven't seen, because they don't know how to get this. And now in today's, at least before, there were some video shops that you can go to, especially the old ones. There's one here in LA, North Hollywood. I don't know if it still exists, where you can go and find anything.
Odyssey
Yes,
video?
It's just like you go there, spend hours. And I think that by removing that medium, I think we lost an ability to find those movies. There's
You can't find movies anymore.
There's so many good movies.
The carousel or whatever,
and then
the algorithm will just give you.
And then exactly. And then on top of that, there are movies that are made independently that you can see in the festivals, and they're like, and then you never can find it. And there's really beautiful films. I never went there, but I watch a lot of movies also, because we, used to. My business partner and has a distribution company, and I used to help him with that. And so I used to watch a lot of films, and still, we get movies. And there's so many beautiful films that just the distributors decide it doesn't work for whatever reason, and it just gets lost. I made a movie like this, which is a beautiful movie. We had screenings, people loved it, everybody cried. Couldn't get it anywhere, because apparently it fell in the middle of whatever. And so it's a hard one. Like, I can, for me, it's very hard to say, because sometimes I watch a movie and then I'm like, this is an amazing film, then you never hear about this anymore. So I don't really want to single out one film. I think it's about, I think that maybe one day there's going to be a way of looking, because there's so much content, but content you consume is what those algorithms give you. Netflix for you is different from Netflix for me, because they show me very different things. But if I don't know what to look for, I won't look for. So I hope there's going to be a way of accessing some of these beautiful films that the distributors just feel like it cannot be made. I saw one movie, I cannot remember the name, honestly, but maybe 7 years ago I was watching one of those films for potential distribution, small indie. It was an incredible story, and then I can't remember the name, and then I never seen this movie, and I looked for it, and I never saw this movie before, and I tried to even look for a name and like get the whole film, because I only saw I watched it in this market screening, so just a piece of it, and I couldn't find it. So I don't have one specific film that I think is underrated. I think there's a lot, and I think as a filmmaker you should do research and look for smaller films. You might find some really beautiful stuff, or bigger films.
And it's definitely an issue, because it used to be just about 10-ish years ago, when Netflix was fairly new, it fully embraced indies, and you could find films you'd never heard of on there. And now they've dropped all those.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's, you'd think the licensing fees would be tiny, but yeah, now you can really not find great films that actually had small theatrical runs are hard to track down. Yeah. I'm very anti-torrenting, but sometimes to show my wife a film that I loved from the 80s, I have to torrent it.
Yeah.
Because there's don't even have the option to pay for it.
Yeah.
If you can find them, because some of them don't even exist.
Yeah, some then you can't find it. Yeah.
So that's...
All right. What do you want to lead off? Do you have one for overrated? You can pick on something that won Oscars that you didn't think was quite good, or it could be a film you loved, but...
Well, I'm confused with... Listen, the Oscar conversation is very confusing to me, because I don't understand how Oscar went from being an Oscar to being an independent film awards. I really don't get it. I'm sorry. I mean, I like indie movies, but also like commercial movies. And I think Oscar is going to disappear in the next few years, because Oscar is completely disconnected from the audience. Because audience, if you want people to watch Oscar, than give an award to a movie that everybody's watching. But then your Oscar is giving to, the nomination is going to a movie that nobody heard about often. I don't care how good the movie is. There are other awards for it. So, so I think that there are movies that overrated because you can make any movie famous, even if it's bad, if you put right PR into it. And that's the reality. That's the way the world we live in, is that the distributor decides what movie to push, and sometimes those movies work. I'm probably going to piss a lot of people, but I think that Star Wars, not the spin-offs of Star Wars, but the actual Star Wars, the
original trilogy?
Yeah, not the original, but yes, the continuation of the original trilogy that we see now.
The one that just came off.
Yes, for example.
Right, that final trilogy.
The newer ones. I actually think they're not that good. I think that for me, which was one of the first things I have seen, was original Star Wars, and I saw it later than, I saw all three, but I saw it later than everybody else, or not everybody else, but Americans saw. And it was such it was amazing. It was different, had a soul to it. And now, it's like, okay, now we spend all this money and we got to spin it off in every direction. And I don't mind, the Mandalorian, because it's different. And I don't even mind the spin-off stories. I think they're better. But the actual Star Wars, I honestly think, and I'm not a crazy Star Wars fan, I think it's over. I mean, would be one of the movies.
I agree with you completely. So, I'm a Star Wars fan. I saw Star Wars when it was just Star Wars in 1977. I was 9 years old and I saw it in the theaters and it amazed me. But I'm not even sure I like the two sequels of that. I think they're overrated.
I agree.
And,
that's what I'm saying.
And I thought Rogue One and Han Solo, like little off to the side, were great films.
I thought so.
Yeah. And the prequels and the following the Skywalker saga bores the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I agree.
No value to it. But I thought Rogue One was a great little, a suicide mission in outer space.
That was
just
fun.
like Star Wars was cowboys and pirates in outer space. Like,
exactly.
It
and that's just
it.
one example. There are movies like that, unfortunately, that exist there, and I think they just, they don't work.
I'll give you an example that you'll agree with me because we saw it together as well. Nomadland. We saw that. That's a movie that's not to say that it's not a good movie or it doesn't have merit. It's interesting. It has merit. It has something to say. But if it wasn't that director and that actor, that movie would have gone nowhere.
No festival would have touched this movie.
Nowhere.
They would say, oh my God, who made that? I did like the music in it. It's only a little piece, because most of it no music, but actually one thing that this movie really I remember is the theme. I really think the composer did an amazing job. But unfortunately, other than that, again, people
wouldn't have gone anywhere. Jan and I actually we were at a screening of it when we were in Mykonos of all places.
No, I saw it before though. That's the second time I saw it.
So you saw it for a second time
at home.
But what was quite funny, Mykonos, we were there for a project, kind of doing some scouting and things, and we got invited to the screening. And Mykonos is quite a wealthy, affluent island, and there were a lot of wealthy, affluent people. And we're watching this outdoor screening with these wealthy, affluent people, and they're like, oh, these people, oh my goodness, oh, how can they live? And like there was this one scene where they're like doing this cheap like face mask with mud, and all these wealthy people are like, oh, how silly, look at them trying to be all fancy. And it's like, wow, these people, and afterwards they're like, oh my God, that movie was so moving because, oh, how could they live? And you're like, really?
But
really, come on,
I think, and again, I'm probably gonna annoy.
It's exhibitionism.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna annoy a lot of people saying this, and that's why I don't try not to do interviews or things like this, because I always say something wrong.
Feel free not to.
No, but I think that these days with movies, we are like Emperor's Clothes fairy tale, where somebody says, "Oh my God, this is a great movie," because it's something that people need to say, and everybody's like following this. And I know that when you listen to people outside of the group, they'll be like, I hated that film, but they will tell you, and then this movie will get an Oscar sometimes, but the reality is it's not good. But it's with the right elements put together, it works, because people are attracted. They want to see, again, Nomadland. She's incredible, and there's no question.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad movie.
No. And if Nomadland, I'm with you, both of you entirely. Because if Nomadland had been, a film that not many people saw, and that when it came and it didn't get awards, and when it came out on Netflix or wherever, whoever streamed it, people said, "Hey, there's this interesting film. Not a great time, not super entertaining, maybe a little slow, but watch it. It's an interesting slice of life." But it didn't. But it got blown into this big thing that I think did it a disservice, because it's just a little slice of life of something happening in America that deserves a little bit of attention, but a lot of attention.
And also, and they did, and I think Oscars need to rethink. They need to reconnect with the audience, because the audience is not. People used to watch Oscar because they were excited, and then of course, it went from big movies to like. I think those movies also deserve recognition, and I think Oscars need to remember that there's a lot of they now trying to do things. Oh, let's go and give it to small indies. I'm all for small indies, but those guys have other awards.
Won an award,
or even get nominated. Oh. And honestly, I don't know why the James Bond wasn't nominated. I didn't see it. I guess the last 2 years have been a little weird because there have been no box office successes because there's been no theatrical screenings, but yeah, it's. I've been trying to plow through the recent 10 that were just nominated for Best Picture. So far, I haven't seen anything that I would want to watch again.
Right,
and that's the problem. And the Oscars, for me, I would want to win an Oscar for a movie that people actually watched, not that people only watched in LA and New York, and they're like, okay, because then it's kind of like, okay, well, then how is it's Oscar, but it needs to be. I think they need to remember that the whole origin of that, and again, I love indie movies, but they have a lot of their own awards, and I think that Oscars always needs to connect more to the audience. And there's a lot of big films that are beautiful, and just because they're big, they shouldn't be excluded. Although they did give few nominations this year, but
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And hopefully we'll see. The funny thing is, I believe they went from 5 nominees to 9 to 10 to have more box office success in there, and it just hasn't worked out for them. And if you hear the gardener, that's because we know I record these on Thursdays because my gardener comes on Wednesdays. He's here on a Thursday. All right, last question, and then you guys can run. You've already hit this, but a lesser-known film that people should seek out. And there's
a nice leaf blower in the background.
Normally, I think the other stuff might not have come through the mics, but that's going to come through.
That'll probably come through.
He's literally standing on the other side of the... he and I are psychically combined. Right. He knows. He wants to be close to me.
I'll rapid fire. There's this little indie based off of a book by the same name called When Nietzsche Wept. I loved the book. The movie, it's an indie. It's rough around the edges, but it's beautiful. It has something to say, and I just really loved it. Really loved it. And John Borman's Excalibur is also really underrated and amazing.
For sure. Oh, I saw that in theaters, and boy, do I remember some of those scenes. All right, and Yan, a lesser known people should look up?
The movie?
Yeah, there's a movie.
Again, it's.
There's too many.
I've watched so many movies. It's.
This is not the most underrated. It's just underrated.
Well, it's just some movie that most people have missed. But if you want to pass,
no. I mean, I thought about this question as well, but I don't want to. I feel like I don't want to single out one movie because I have a few of them. I know, don't look at me like this, Omri.
You can throw a couple names out if you want. There's no rule; it has to be just one. I mean,
I put 2.
Well, I think for since we are in US and this is an English podcast or English speaking podcast, I think that people should look into international cinema a little more. And of course, today Netflix has some, and some other countries. Some other platforms have it, but it's still mostly very specifically picked films. So I honestly don't know. Cannot single out 1 or 2 films. I think there's many that that are underrated and could people should watch. I think, but it also depends on people's
taste,
what they're looking for, and their taste, and So I don't really want to name one film.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I know you two have to get going, so I will get my final spiel out. Like and subscribe the podcast, Discover Indie Film, anywhere you can check it out. And there is a TV series that was born out of this podcast that is an anthology of the best films that have been on the festival circuit. And Omri and Yan's film, Achan and Ezra, is going to be in Season 5 of the Discover Indie Film TV series. So if you want to learn more about that, go to discoverindiefilm.com. And on social media, it's at TIFWins, Jeff versus the leaf blower. And please give that series 5 stars. Go to Amazon.com. It's better if you've watched the series before you review it, but I'm not going to be mad if you give it 5 stars and you haven't seen it. Did I just ask for something unethical? I don't know. All right. And their film, Achan and Ezra, was actually in both festivals. So I'm going to name the Sherman Oaks Film Festival and Film Invasion Los Angeles. We hold the Sherman Oaks Film Festival every November here. And you can learn about it at ShermanOaksFF.com. And it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. And Film Invasion Los Angeles, we hold that every June. And it's FilmInvasionLA.com. And it's at Film Invasion LA on social media. And this June, right now, it's February 17th. So, geez, in less than 4 months, we'll be at the theater again for a festival. That'll be great. If you're in town, free tickets. Free passes for alumni always.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Yan. Thank you, Omri.
Thanks, Jeff.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.